Okay, so we are recording, and this is study period 4, online support for students doing the TAE. And there's me and Wendy involved in this course. I'm Jodie Viviani, and we're going to have a general run through of the assessments required for study period 4 and you know, what are some of the tricky bits that students find difficult. So let's start. So this is the first assessment here, the 0-1 assessment. And we'll scroll through. So I'll tell you that the main mistake that people make is that they don't do enough units of competency. So you have to have 2 units of competency per person, and you have to have two people. So that's where it says 2 people there, and 2 units of competency. So that adds up to 4 altogether, and it does say down here that they have to be different units. So that makes 4 units altogether. So sometimes people only do 2 units. So that would probably be the biggest mistake in study period 4 that people make, is that particular mistake there. They do 2 units and they sometimes only do 1 candidate. You have to do 2 candidates and 2 units per candidate that are different from each other.
Sorry, Jodie, can I just hold there?
Yep.
The view that I've got of your screen at the moment is just the welcome to our online tutorial for SP4.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Is that better?
Oh, I've got a blue screen at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, that's better.
That's better. Okay, great. Thank you. Alrighty. I had I had paused the screen. I've unpaused it now, so you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so that would be the main thing. So you have to do 2 people, and you have to have 2 different units per person, which adds up to 4 units altogether. Okay, so that's probably the thing that most people would get a withheld for and be asked to resubmit. So that you kind of get that, don't you, what I'm saying there?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So, okay. All right, so they're the general instructions. So if we go through, I'll go through the appendices with you. So you do have to submit and complete all of the appendices. You also have to submit the assessment that you used for the candidate, and you have to submit the candidate's completed assessment. So if it's short answer questions, it has to be their written answers to the short answer questions, and it has to be you going through, ticking, crossing, commenting, providing a grade of satisfactory or not for each task, and then an overall grade of competency for whether they're going to attain those units, and feedback about why you made that decision. So that's the overall thing that you do when you actually assess a person. You get them to do the assessment. You actually assess it and write your annotations all over everything, and then you provide them with feedback. So you do need to submit the appendices as well as that other material. So that would be another thing that commonly can go wrong, is that sometimes people don't submit, they'll just submit the appendices but not the actual assessment task, not the actual task itself of completing the assessment with the student, which in fact is actually the main thing. That's the most important thing, because that's what this study period is about you showing that you can assess a person. Now I will show you here, if we flick here, okay, if I go to, why is it doing that? My computer is going strange. Okay, I might not do that. On the study period itself, there is a little link that you can click on that says simulated assessment tools. And so if you click on that, inside is a whole range of blank assessment tools that you can use, and they already have 2 units of competency which are clustered together. And so if you want to, you don't have to try and find your own assessment tools. You can use those ones. And many students do that, but some students choose to use their own. They want to do that, and that's okay. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you use assessment tools that are based upon units of competency to assess two different people. So you can use whatever assessment tools you like, but if you're running short and you can't find any, then we do provide some for you, and they're kind of designed to be as generic as possible to cater to as many different people's needs as possible. So one of them is a generic cluster on workplace health and safety. Another one is a generic cluster on communication, for example. So those two are pretty popular because they relate to many people in many job roles. But there's other ones as well. So there's one on photography and one on working in a shop, like a business of some kind. So there's a variety of different ones there you can choose from. So just to let you know that this study period is not about you needing to write the assessment materials. You don't have to actually write and produce them yourself. You just have to show that you can use assessment tools to assess a person. Okay, so that's something to be mindful of. So it might seem like it's bigger than what it is, but it's actually a little bit easier. Okay, now Appendix A. These are general questions. So just to determine that you've read it, is the information clear? What's the benchmark? So what's the unit of competency that you're going to use? Can you see how I'm highlighting these? I just want to make sure that it's on track. Yep, you can see. Okay, great. Alrighty, good. So what are the evidence requirements? What are the methods you're going to use to assess this person, etc. So it's a general review of what the unit is about and making sure that you understand that the generics of it. Are there any legal and ethical requirements? So here you might be looking for things like if it's a childcare unit, for example, the person probably has to get a working with children police check. That might be something, for example. Not everything is going to have a legal or ethical requirement, but if it does, then this would be the place that you write it down. Are there any barriers? Is there anything that you need to be considerate of with regard to your person? And so that's it for Appendix A. Appendix B, so everything needs assessment tools, even if it's just the tool itself, where with the assessment questions or whatever else. Some of them require a little bit more. So if you're doing the one on workplace health and safety, it requires a box because the person has to pick up and move a box using good body posture. So that requires an extra thing for a box. And so the purpose of this appendix is just for you to be able to plan and organise and get everything written down that you need material-wise to do the assessment. Yep, we're good with that one. Number C, so again, it's the responsibility of a trainer and assessor to make sure that they're doing everything in a safe working environment. And this is basically the purpose of this, just to ensure that it's a safe working environment. So where you are doing your assessment with your person, what is the emergency evacuation procedure? So that's where you might write a very short summary. It doesn't have to be long, maybe 1 or 2 sentences or something like that. So we're not expecting a big, huge thing to be written down, but just make sure in here that what you write relates to the specific assessment that you're going to do with the student. So, what do you have to tell them prior to the assessment, etc.? So there might not be very much, but there might be something. So that would be something I would say here, is just relate this back to the very specific assessment you're going to do.
Okay.
This is just so that you get a good profile of who your candidate is and that you know you're going to cater your assessment to their needs. So that's all that one's about. This is about how you're going to communicate with somebody. Now, this has a big list here. This does not mean, which is what some people think, that they have to have evidence of having used all 6 of these methods. So that's actually not the case. It's not expected. It's just so that you've got a list of potential ways that people typically might communicate. But if you did yours because you sent somebody an email, then you only have to, fill in the one that talks about email and then provide maybe a screenshot as evidence of that. That might be your evidence. If it was a text message, you can provide a screenshot of a text message. If you did it face-to-face, then maybe just write a couple of sentences about what you talked about. Okay, so it doesn't have to be huge. So it probably seems worse than what it is actually, because you can put not applicable for all the ones that are not applicable. This is the list of things here that you need to talk to the person about and tell them about prior to the assessment. So you have to explain that they have a right to RPL, you have to give them clear instructions, you have to clarify that they understand what it's all about, etc. Yeah? You have to give them feedback and say, do you understand? What are the assessment outcomes? So that's, it could be competent or not yet competent, are the possible outcomes. And so you fill these out and you have to say how you did it. And so if you talked face to face and you described it all to them, then you can say, I did this face to face, see my little description down here, and you can put some words in the bottom down here somewhere and just describe about how you talked to the student and what you said. So don't make it huge, maybe just a paragraph. Okay, it doesn't have to be very big, but just to make sure that you can show that you covered these points here in the list.
Okay, so there's no requirement to actually, like if I did a face-to-face, there's no requirement to actually record that conversation and submit it with the assessment?
No, there's not a requirement. However, I will say to you that sometimes students have done that and I think, wow, look what they did, and I am very impressed. So there you go. You can take that on board and do with it what you will, but no, it's not a requirement that they have to do that.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, it's not a requirement that you have to video any of this at all. Just submit the evidence of having done it. So this is where, of course, students have to agree to do the assessment. So they just have to tick and sign that, yes, I agree that the person gave me the right information, and yes, I understand that what the policy and procedures are, etc. So they just tick along the way and then sign and date at the bottom. So you just do that, take a scan of it or a screenshot or in a photograph or something. Sometimes students take a photograph or they scan it. It doesn't really matter as long as you provide the evidence. However you provide it is fine.
Okay.
Here is a list of different things you might need to consider. So plagiarism, for example, how are you going to try and think about how you'll tell that the student didn't cheat by getting their husband or their wife to do it for them, for example? Are there any licensing requirements? That's quite often a requirement with things like apprenticeships and things. You have to actually sign on and be registered and so forth for a lot of traineeships, those sorts of things. What might your duty of care be? So you might put not applicable to some of these, but your duty of care would be something you'd have to write a comment for because you do have a duty of care. So, with the picking up the box one, for example, you might write something like, I'm going to make sure that the box is empty to make it nice and light because it's not about forcing them to pick up weight, it's just about making sure they've got the right body posture. So that might be what you can do to ensure good duty of care that you're not going to put your person at risk. So that kind of thing. So again, just make sure that you relate it to the actual assessment that you're doing. Anti-discrimination, equal employment, etc. So, all those sorts of things that I'm sure you've gone over lots of times before. This one here, the purpose of this one is for you to give feedback about how you thought the assessment process went. So did you think it went okay? Were there problems? Did you think the instructions weren't very good? And so forth. And so you can write, your summary of your comments in here. And if you've got any recommendations to improve the process, well, that's what you would write in there. And any actions that you think people might need to take to improve it all. So when you actually are working in an RTO, and you do an assessment or training, you typically have to fill out something like this, a trainer evaluation form at the end of each session you do. So this is just an example of a trainer evaluation form for you to show that you know how, that you can evaluate the process and how it went.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so this is your professional development plan, and what you think you did well, what your strengths were, what you think you could have gotten better at. I tell people not to be afraid to write weaknesses or gaps down. You don't have to be perfect, and in fact it's probably better that you actually do be open and actually say, look, I need to get better at this or that, and you know, recognise the gaps, because then you've got a way to be able to move forward if you recognise them. Whereas if you kind of, everything is a strength, I'm good at everything, I'm so fabulous, it might be true, you might be completely fabulous, so I'm not disagreeing, but I guess I'm just saying don't be afraid to write a weakness down. You're not going to get marked down for being open about the fact that there are areas you still need to work on. So I guess that's what that's about. And this is a place for you to think about professional development, because when you work in an RTO, in training and assessment in vet, you have to every year show that you have kept up to date with the industry and that you have kept your professional development up to date and your skills and knowledge up to date. And so because you do have to actually do that in the industry when you're working and doing a job, this is a place where you can actually practice starting to do those skills and tasks that you do actually have to do when you're out there working. So you'll be
Okay.
required at the end of every year, or whatever the cycle is of when your organisation does it, to actually keep such a log as this. Okay, so that's the first assessment. So you need to do these appendices twice, because you have to do them once for every student, and you need to do 2 students. I would say it's okay to copy and paste this one across both, because after you've done both students and you're going to submit it, like this is likely to be the same, and this one is as well. So your professional development, strengths and weaknesses is likely to be the same. So do both of your candidates, fill this in once and just copy it into both of the assessment pro formas. That will be different, of course, because you're doing 2 completely separate assessments, and you might think one is fine but the other one's not very good. So of course some of these you'll have to do separately. In fact, most of them you'll have to do separately for each of your assessments. But this Appendix I, I'm happy for people to do just once and copy it across.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right, now I might look now. This is a assessment 2. Now this one is different because it's an RPL assessment. So it's recognition of prior learning. So you're not doing a standard kind of an assessment. So you only have to do one person, and it does. Yeah. So you don't have to do 2, and it only has to be 1 unit of competency as well. So you know, up in here, this other one said a minimum of 2 people, 2 units per. It doesn't say that here. So you can just do 1 candidate, 1 unit of competency, and you'll meet the requirements for this assessment. So you need to this one is slightly different in that it's got a set of 9 short answer questions. Yeah, 9. I'm sure there's 9. Yes, 9. So you need to do those 9 short answer questions. And then it has the appendices, which are the exact same appendices as in the 02 assessment. So I won't go through them again because it's no different for this one than what it was for the other one, that the information's the same.
Okay.
I guess in terms of things that people might get a withheld for, so just to try and avoid people getting withheld, so you want to get through the first time as quickly and do it properly the first time. Sometimes here with these short answer questions, people will copy and paste directly from websites and they won't quote it or acknowledge the source or anything. You can't really do that. You have to write your answers in your own words. So it's okay to do research. It's okay to source information from other places, but just make sure that you include the link of wherever you found it and that you rewrite it in your own words. Okay, so anything where I can see there's a huge paragraph that's copy and pasted, I'll ask you to redo that section and show me again that you understand it by putting it in your own words. So that's one thing that people might get a withheld for. Again, the same as the other 01 assessment, you have to submit the actual evidence of the assessment itself. Now, if you don't have an RPL assessment tool, you can use one that you've got yourself or one that you get from another organisation, or there's one that we provide as well, and that is in the social space, and it was the materials were put up there by Jessica on social space. So if you're having a look and you can't find them, just send me a message and I can email them to you, because I've got them as well. So that's fine. So again, you don't have to create materials or anything like that. You just need to use an assessment tool to assess a person via RPL. And again, you have to submit the evidence of having done that. So you need to submit the assessment tool, and if the student has submitted a CV and a couple of certificates and maybe a third-party report or something as part of their RPL portfolio, then you need to submit that evidence, and then you need to say, RPL granted or not granted because you have or haven't submitted sufficient evidence, and if there's a gap, then you need to tell them what the gap is and give suggestions for what they could submit, etc. So it's basically just assessing a person using RPL. So you need to provide that evidence of having done the actual assessment itself.
Okay.
So that's the actually most important bit, because all of the appendices and short answer questions, the purpose of this is just to capture all the background information and knowledge, that you understand the underpinning knowledge. But the actual bit about actually assessing a person is really important, because that's what the whole study period is about.
Okay.
Okay. Apart from that, some general, I guess, advice and information is that it has the information bloody blah. So because that's in a yes-no format, you can put yes and you have met the requirement and everything's dandy, and you won't be asked to give to resubmit as a withheld. That won't happen because you've answered the question. But if you say yes because, and then you write one sentence to explain why you've given that answer, that is obviously going to give you a better grade.
Yep.
Yep. So that would be something. Obviously, it's the same up here. You can just put one-word answers for, you could put type of evidence, direct or something. You can make it really short and to the point, and that's fine. Short and to the point passes you. You'll get a grade for that above 50% and an outcome, so that's okay. But if you want to get a high grade, maybe consider trying to put in a bit more detail and explain your answers a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's probably it in terms of my advice and how to complete the assessments. Do you have any questions around anything I've said?
No, because I was actually looking at using what's been provided on Open Space for the simulation statement assessment, and probably for the second one as well.
Yep, okay. And many people do that because it's one less thing you have to do. So, for this one, for example, the RPL one, you don't just have to go and get an assessment tool for RPL. You then have to go and find a friend to complete it for you, and then get them to actually complete it and find all of those documents and so forth. Whereas if you use the Open Colleges provided one, there is a person already there. They've already provided the documents. You just have to actually look and see whether or not those documents match against the unit of competency. So the first whole step is done for you if you actually use the Open Colleges one. So
yep.
I kind of think it's easy. But some people, the Open Colleges one is on conflict. It's a unit of competency on managing conflict in the workplace, and some people don't want to use it because they think that's not really a topic I think I'd be very good at, and so they would prefer to do their own individual thing because they would prefer to do it on something within their own industry, and that's completely fine, and I admire that because they want to really make it something that relates to their future work role. So I have no issues if people want to do that, but it is one less step in the process if you do choose to use the Open Colleges stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just on that, so you were talking managing conflict in the workplace.
Yeah.
As an assessor in the real world, you would have to have vocational competence in that. But for the purposes of this assessment, if
Yeah.
that's not your vocational competencies or your strengths, is that going to cause a huge issue?
No, it won't be an issue at all, not for this particular assessment. So you just need to really show the skills. And so what you need to do is go through the pieces of evidence, maybe write on the pieces of evidence where in the unit of competency it might map back to, and that kind of thing. And then you fill the forms out appropriately. You make an assessment decision that's, that's well, you've given a good explanation about why you've made that decision, etc. So that's what you need to do. So the fact that for this particular process you don't have vocational competence, it doesn't actually matter. So most people aren't, and it's really okay as long as you can show the basic skills of analysing and making good decisions. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So go through the evidence. Even if you want to write on the evidence and scan it and submit it, you can write, this relates to elements 1.6, 3.4 or whatever, because that actually shows really good engagement with the unit of competency as well as the evidence, and you're putting a lot of thought and effort into it. You're not just blatantly making a decision just because or whatever. The more effort you can put into it and demonstrate and show your thought processes, the higher a grade you will get probably as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything you're worried about that you might not be sure how to do?
No, not in this. Not in this. It's actually been helpful that you've gone through it. A number of appendices don't look any scary anymore.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. They often do look much scarier when you're not really sure what it's about. But when you have an explanation, you think, oh yeah, that's not so bad.
Yeah, not so scary.
No, not so scary. You just really need to show that you understand your unit, basically, and the assessment requirements for it. That's what all those appendices are for. And in fact, all of the requirements of those appendices are the same as what they would be in a real life working situation anyway. So in the real world, you do have to ensure safety. That's the way it is. You're responsible for the safety of the students in front of you. In the real world, you do have to fill out a form at the end to say whether you thought the processes went okay. That's the way it is as well. So a lot of these processes that are a good practice when you're actually in their world working, because these are the kinds of things you'll have to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. What about your other study periods while we're here and talking? Do you want some advice about anything else that you might be stuck on?
I'm not stuck
No,
so
okay.
much. Ones the ones that require where you've got to do the video submission.
All right, yeah.
It's finding people that are happy to be videoed, myself included. That's
Yeah, it can be
pretty
tricky. Yeah.
pretty.
Do you know what? Oh, okay. So I'll tell you some things that other students have done to make that a bit easier. One student, there are units of competency around wine tasting. And so she chose the wine tasting units of competency because she knew that she would easily get people to come. So there you go. So you can choose wine tasting. You can choose, and there's lots of food units as well around teaching
Yeah.
people how to prepare food and stuff. So if someone wants to be taught how to do something or other and you're happy to teach them how to do something or other, then, if someone wants to learn something, they can. There's lots of nice, lovely little ones around Vietnamese cooking and other things. So you could choose something like that. The other thing that tends to make it easier for people is if you choose units of competency around things that people already know and already are good at. So you're not making it hard for people. So if you want to get your sister, for example, to do something, maybe choose a unit of competency on something she's good at, like maybe on how to use a computer, if that's something she's good at. There are units of competency on how you make a bed, so you could assess your mother because she's probably, made 1,000 beds in her lifetime. So that's another thing that actually helps to get people to do it, is if they're not scared that it's going to be too hard. So choose things that are nice and easy for people to know how to do.
Cool.
Yeah. Wine tasting, that went down really well, I'm told. So there you go.
I bet it did.
And there's another one on cheese tasting, so she combined them and she had 2 kind of sessions and she got everybody in together at once. And she said, okay, we're going to do 2 units. And they did one which was all about wine tasting, and then they sat down and then they stopped that video. And then she started a new video and said, okay, this one's about cheese tasting. And they did all the second one about cheese tasting. And she had her 2 videos knocked over and done in an hour. And then everybody partied on through the night, continuously wine and cheese tasting, I'm told. So that would be something else as well. If you're going to get your 5 people in, maybe get them all in together and do it all at once. So just make sure though, because some of them say different people. Some of the units say that the unit on Provide Work Skill Instruction has 3 videos, and that specifically says for each of your videos you have to have different people. So if you've got 5 people, do 2 of them on wine tasting and 3 of them on cheese tasting or something, and then all 5 of them can party afterwards. So just make sure that you do it properly like that, so that you're meeting the requirements of the unit. So that would be something I'd say.
Yeah.
This is another thing that somebody did. They did the one on make a presentation. And the first one on make a presentation isn't terribly interesting. It's like all these topics to do with TAE, and you have to pretend the students are new employees, they're new trainers and assessors of the training organisation. You're giving them an induction on all these really riveting topics like anti-discrimination legislation and so forth. And apparently that's a hard one to get people to volunteer for. So I'm not surprised. But what sometimes students do is that they say, okay, we're going to do this one, which is not very interesting, but if you come and sit through this one with me, then we'll do the wine tasting afterwards. So that's another way as well. See, people need motivation.
That I'm actually going to get 2 of the group presentations knocked over on the weekend.
Okay, great.
Which is relating to go-kart racing of all things.
Oh, okay, great, yes.
As officials, we have to renew our accreditation every 2 years, and I'm now one of the deliverers of the training course for that. So if they come and sit through the 2 presentations, they get their accreditation redone for another 2 years.
Oh, that is amazing. That is so clever. Good for you. Yeah.
Hopefully just at this stage, I'm not sure whether I can video it, because at this point in time I've only got one person confirmed as attending.
Oh, okay. Now, sometimes another thing is about why people are scared is because they don't want their face shown or something. And so what you can say is that you don't have to have your face shown. So it's okay to video from the back. And so you're looking at the back of people's heads and the front of you because you're standing in front of them. So that's another thing that sometimes makes people feel better about the process. We're not going to get your face. We're filming from the back. The only thing we're going to see is the back of your head. Yeah. So another lady I saw, what she did once was the people didn't actually want to be videoed. They were happy to sit through it and to talk and ask questions and participate, but they didn't want their face on video. So she kind of got them to stand up and put their hand in front of the video and wave hello, so that, as the assessor, I can see that everybody's actually there and that they are real people. And then they sat back down behind the video, so they weren't in the video at all. But I could still hear them because they asked questions and they interacted and stuff. And so that's fine, that the fact that they actually weren't in the video at all. So that's okay as well. So that's, you know, another example of what you might do to encourage people to participate.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if I did wine tasting or food appreciation, I'd get heaps of takers.
I reckon you will. Students who do those topics have never had a problem.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I reckon I'd get in trouble as the course deliverer for participating while delivery.
Oh, look, I'd have your own glass of wine afterwards, probably. Yeah. Certainly when the camera stops rolling, I will never know what you do, will I?
No, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so if do you have anything else you're stuck with or not sure about?
No, was actually the only other question I've got relate to the two elective units that I'm doing. To run webinars for those or not? So I'm doing mentoring, and I think the other one was the building or developing teams.
Oh, okay. Now, can I just tell you with the mentoring one, the mentoring unit of competency is specifically designed for people, and it says this in the unit descriptor. It says that it's specifically designed for people who are mentoring an apprentice or a trainee.
Yep.
Do you have an apprentice or trainee?
I have a graduate that I'm mentoring for technical writing. So they've actually come into our organisation on our formal graduate program. They're not, probably not trainee in the traditional sense of the word, although while they're on our graduate program, they're on that program for 12 months and do a combination of work placements, on-site, off-site training as part of that program.
You know what, that probably sounds okay actually. Because often people do that one thinking that, oh yeah, I'm a senior person in the workplace, I've been here 10 years, people come to me for advice, I'm very helpful, etc. And that might very well be true, but it doesn't meet the requirements of this unit. But I think that your program probably does. Because it's quite formal in that manner. So what I would do if I was you is just make sure that you submit the formal documents that demonstrate that this is a formal program and that it's an intake, it's got a start and end date, people graduate at the end, etc. So I would make sure that you submit all of that documentation to show.
Okay. And I think the other one, the building teams.
Develop teams and individuals, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the other one.
I don't know that I've got any tricks of the trade for that one.
Yep.
That's pretty straightforward, which is just about, you know, coming up with specific ideas and helping people in the workplace and training programs for teams as well as individuals within the workplace. So that one's a bit more generic. So there's nothing, you don't need to do videos for that one either. So that makes it easier in terms of that. And you can base it upon your current workplace as well. You don't need to go out and find special people or any other such thing. So that's actually a nice, easy, well, easy in terms of resources and all of that kind of stuff. It's an easy assessment study period to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was having a look at, I haven't got the assignment in front of me. I thought there was something in there about learning plans or something or other like that, and facilitating or delivering training or something.
Yeah, there is. There is that, but you don't have to video it. You just have to write it up. Write up what you did. Yeah. So you do have to do a training.
So,
and so forth. But you can, if you want to submit one of the videos, maybe if you're going to base it upon something that you've already videoed in the course, then of course extra evidence is always going to give you a good grade, but it's not a requirement in that particular study period.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, what I was I facilitate and deliver part of a training program at work for new starters into our division. So it's a day and a half program, and essentially I rewrote it. But
Yeah. Yep.
there's some parts of it that I deliver. There's other bits of it where I facilitate. So we get people external to the division to come in and explain to our staff, you know, what their division does and that sort of thing. Is that the sort of thing that would count with that one or not?
Yeah, that's fine. That fits in perfectly well with what the requirements are, so that's okay.
Okay, and then doing things like afterwards, giving the people that participate in the course a feedback form to fill out, and then sitting down and analysing that feedback and going, well, yeah, this bit worked, or, you know, this new bit that we added into the program worked really well, but there's other sections of the program where, you know, maybe the presenters weren't so good or the topic was completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yep, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
That's good, yes. Yep, that's the kind of thing
Okay.
that you do, yes. Yep, so
All
it's
right.
kind of different from the other ones in that the other study periods where you're working with groups, you're basically just a trainer. In this particular study period, it's more about actually being in the workplace and being a leader within the workplace and moving your groups of people along into, it's more of a long-term kind of a thing, looking long-term at the skills and knowledge of the groups and individuals, and it's kind of looking at you as having more of a leadership role in general rather than the other study periods where it's just a one-off. Here I am doing my one-off wine tasting stuff. So that's just a
Yeah.
one-off. Yeah, this is more of a long-term thing where you're showing leadership in a workplace and you're looking at groups of people to develop them, holistically. It's a bigger picture kind of a thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if you've got any more questions?
No.
No.
No, that's
Okay. All right. Well, I have recorded this, so I'll put it up. I'll send it through to the office and ask them to they put it up so other people can view it and see it as well. So if you have anything that you didn't write down or you want to review it, you can go back and watch it again. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
Cool.
Jodie.
Alrighty. Well, thanks a lot, Wendy, and good luck with it all. And I'll probably see you in study period 4. That's where I do most of my
Oh,
assessing.
probably. All right.
All right.
And enjoy some one appreciation.
Excellent. All right. Bye.
Bye.